All right, well, take a this. There's basically only 3 pentatonics that we're working from. Play from the root. That's not even worth talking about. Like G7 playing G pentatonic. You know, that's so like okay. That's take for granted. We didn't learn anything new about that. So then basically he has 2 other chords, right? He's got the 4 chord and the 5 chord, right? So the 4 chord is not functioning, right? And the 5 chord is functioning. So his trick for the functioning, or the non-functioning rather, is starting from the 3rd and flatting the 5th of your pentatonic. That's so convoluted. Starting from the 3rd of the chord, flatting the 5th of the pentatonic. Make sense? And then the altered one he has, like for the 5 chord, is where you start from the 4th of the chord, right? G is the 4th of D. Start from the 4th of the chord and flat the root of the pentatonic, which is kind of almost seems, feel bad saying flat the root because there's no such thing as a flat root, but that's the way he's looking at it. So for altered chords, you go to the 4th to play your minor pentatonic, but you flat the root. Cool? Oh, I messed up. There we go. And that, because that flatting the root is actually giving you a 3rd instead of a 4th over the 5 chord. So if you went 5 to 4, then you wouldn't want to do altered. You wouldn't want to play D altered. Because it's not going to resolve, to a 1 chord. Instead, it's going to go to a 4 chord. So instead, you want to do his first trick. You go to the 3rd of the chord and play minor pentatonic, flatting the 5th of the pentatonic. Cool? So like if I had a progression here and I went, like, let's say here's a good progression you could use to practice this on. A 1 chord. You can just do it to 2 measures if you want. We'll do the short version. To a 4 chord for 1 measure and back to the G for 1. To the E7, to a D7, to a G7, and then to an E7. So there were 2 E7s in that progression. Oh, I'm saying E7. I'm sorry. D7, the 5 chord. I don't know if I've been saying them all wrong this whole time, but... So going to the D7, the 5 chord, there's 2 of those in the progression. The first one is non-functioning and the last one is functioning because the last one is the last one and it starts over after that. So it goes to the 1 chord again where the whole thing started. And so that'd be 5 to 1. Cool? So if you're being strict, sticking to the Paul Gilbert idea, then you're playing from the root for 2 measures. And then you're going to go to the E minor pentatonic over the C, 13, or C7, but it's secretly a 13, as the pentatonic reveals. Then you play E minor pentatonic. Yeah, and you don't have to play the whole thing, but at first you might as well play the whole thing. Over and over to try to memorize it, because it feels super weird. Especially after you've done a pentatonic a certain way for so long. It does. Yeah, it does for sure. So then you do that. You could just play a few notes like... And then you go back to your G. And then... Then when you go to the E7, bear in mind this is the first time, so it's not functioning. Then you're not going to want to play... Well, we'll get to that one. So you're going to do the same trick you did for the C7. You start from the 3rd of the chord and flat the 5th of the pentatonic. Then when it goes to the C, the chord just moves down 2 frets. Naturally, the pentatonic just moves down 2 frets too. So you go back to your E pentatonic. And then you got your G. And then he goes to E7 one more, or then the progression goes to E7 one more time. But this time, it's altered. So you're going to do, start from the 4th of the chord, which is G, but you're going to flat the root of the pentatonic. And then you go back to your 1 chord, because the progression starts over. And that's going to create that. Okay, so I'll walk through that again. G chord. You play G pentatonic minor, bending the 3rd. Then C, the 4 chord. He's secretly doing a C13. We play E minor pentatonic, flatting the 5th. Oops. Then you go back to the G7. You play G minor pentatonic, raising the 3rd. Then you go to the E7. So you play F sharp minor pentatonic, flatting the 5th. And then C7, you play E minor again, just like you did on the last C7. And then G7, go back to your G7 pentatonic. Then to the E. Now this is the altered one, so we're gonna do we're gonna do G minor pentatonic, flatting the root of the pentatonic. I always do that. And that only